Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 3rd November 2016. Now, the editorial discussion, The Tale of Two Americas. Now, the last 30 years, how it has divided America and American people, and how is it reflecting on the present elections, and what can we learn from this particular situation. So, remember here, in the last 30 years, there are two terms, or two Republican presidents and two Democratic presidents. In spite of the parties changing in America, the economic agenda of these parties is one and the same. Because the globalization being irreversible, so either it is a Republican Party or a Democratic Party, the economic choices which are being put forward before the people were very limited. Now, if you take in India, today, either it is Congress or BJP, the economic policies by and large remains the same. So the policy alternatives are coming down with regard to the politics of a country are concerned. So this is what happened across the world in US and in India too. And coming to the second thing, in the early days of independence in India, the focus was on elimination of poverty and bringing in the benefits to the poor. Now, similarly, in the United States, in the post World War II situation, enlarging the opportunities for everyone, that was the goal. Though it is a capitalistic country, the major focus was on middle class. So, that is the reason why the 70% of the income of the country went to 90% of the people, and the wealthy people, they got only the 30% of the income, who are around 10%. Now, in the last 30 years, if you observe, the things got reversed, where 90% of the people are getting only 10% of the income. So, this is also clearly visible in India after the liberalization era. The economic growth is increasing, the wealth is increasing, but however, the inequalities are too high. So, because of this, as a whole outside, the country appears, yes, so with a sound economy, sound macroeconomic features, but inside it is getting eroded. So, when the income inequalities increases in the country, then obviously it will have a reflection on the polity. In United States of America, this is what exactly happening. So the middle class is becoming poor and poor. The fixed services cost is increasing. It means the surplus income is totally absent and economic security, social securities are decreasing to the people. So that's where and so the seeds of the division gets planted. So this is what the Trump's speech is actually talking about, building the walls, and then stricter or strong immigration policies, growth of right wing. All these symbolizes this great divide which has happened over 30 years period of time. That is the reason why Trump was a non-serious candidate 30 years back, but now he became a serious candidate. The Trump's opinion did not change from then to now. But however, American people have changed a lot. Similarly, in India, the society has changed a lot. Now, it means what we have to say is unless the economic activity becomes inclusive, wealth gets distributed, the fissures which come in the country that becomes very much wide and it is going to be dangerous to the country's unity as a whole. Now, coming to the tight race in a divided country. Let us see this particular article. Now, you know that the Trump and Hillary Clinton too are fighting these elections. Trump has got allegations of sexual allegations against him, and Miss Hillary Clinton, she was said to be not trustworthy after she has used the private email server. In this, it has been clearly said that, or recently, the FBI director, Mr. Comey, has clearly said that they are reopening the case against the Secretary of State, Miss Clinton. But whoever may win these elections, the divisions in the country are too wide. And building the nation, building the divides between the races, building the divides between different people living in that country from different origins is going to be a gigantic task. If America wants to retain its greatness, it has to reflect itself as one single nation consisting of different diversities. So, America's greatness is not just in its wealth, the way its democracy is being operated. So, American democracy is an example for inclusiveness. Now, but however, these elections have proven how divisive they can be. So I remember Obama's speech immediately after his election. We are no more red flags and green flags. We are just Americans. We are one single nation. So it means whatever the debate that has happened, whatever the divide that was created during the elections, that has to be masked, that has to go beneath the carpet once the elections are over, and the country has to progress as one single unit. So in this scenario, so how these divisives, how these gaps can be built is a major question for United States of America. Now next is green farms and clean air. In North India, especially in Punjab, there is a habit of burning this particular crop residue. So immediately after the crop season is over, the crop residue is burnt and it is causing a huge particulate matter solution across the Indo-Gangetic plain. So today, the technology is so developed that this biomass can be used for the generation of electricity, more efficient and productive processes. But however, inability to use that for or lack of the penetration of this technology is making the people still to continue with this burning of these crop residue. So what it is been recommended is, so it is going to be a lose-lose situation. If we are able to penetrate the technologies, it may lead to win-win situation in the country. Now let us see. Crushed by the cane lobby. Now this article, we don't need to remember what are the laws which are there in Maharashtra, what are the cane issues, etc. But my important aspect is why the cooperative societies are dying. Our cooperative societies are inefficient compared to the private sector. The Maharashtra Sugar Cooperative Societies, these are the examples for better performing cooperative sector in the country. Why they are facing such a hurdle now? Now, if you see, the first question, the Maharashtra Cooperative Sugar Cooperative Societies, these are more efficient and they are more productive compared to the private sector. Now, it means whatever the harvest and transportation costs that have to be incurred by the cooperative society if compared with the private sector, cooperative society is much economical. And the second thing is the amount of the sugar produced out of the cane, cooperative society is economical. It is majorly due to the people participation. But however, the politics of the day, lack of fixed tenure for its members, and added to that, the interference in their functioning, excessive bureaucratic interference in their functioning. These are the problems the cooperative sectors are facing and which has led to their non-existence in many of the states. So, that point, what are the weaknesses of the cooperative societies you need to study? From this perspective, try to read the cooperative societies from the second ARC report, Social Capital. Now, on parallel tracks, now here let us understand how the industrial system is working today. The organized sector is very much regulated and the unorganized sector is highly unregulated in the country. So in the organized sector, there are certain challenges. So one is the labor laws are too tight. It means every owner of a factory wants to keep the employees out of this organized sector. And over a period of time, contractual labor is increasing in the factories. So, it means a factory owner X, he will give a contract to a middleman Y. He will employ A, B, C, D as the workers in the company X. So, it means the X is not the formal employer, but Y is the formal employer. X has MN as his workers. These MN forms the permanent workers of the X, and between these two there are employer-employee relations. But between X, A, B, C, D there are no employer-employee relations. In this case, the Trade Unions Act 1926 is been misinterpreted to realize or signify only this particular relationship, not this relationship over here. And the second thing is, the problem is this. Yes, with regard to the contractual workers, there are no social security benefits. The major challenge they get is from their co workers, that is, these MN. Because MN, if they are 500, the contractual workers are around 2000 in the factory. It means the contractual workers were allowed into the trade unions. Obviously, these permanent workers becomes a minority and their wit will not pass in the trade union. And the second is, if you carefully observe, a contractual labor regulation, prohibition and regulation act was passed by the parliament. According to that, A, B, C, D, who are the contractual employees, shall not be employed in the core productive production purposes. But however, if you carefully observe, there is a phenomenon called sham contracting. Under this, these people will be employed as gardeners, cleaners, etc. But however, they are being doing the work of production on the assembly lines. So it means this particular law is being circumvented. So in this case, so the trade unions, the management is inherently against the contractual labor. Unless the trade unions they try to admit their contractual labors into their fold, this situation cannot change much. So in this context, there is a huge salary differences between the permanent workers and the contractual employees. The recent Supreme Court judgment that any unequal payment of the wages to the workers for the same job is exploitative in nature and is against the human dignity, it may bring some change in the situation. And let's get into the. Now, the fishermen talks end in stalemate. Now, in this context, India and Sri Lanka have this fishermen problem from very long, but it got worsened after LTTE lost the war. So, what happened is Indian fishermen, so they lost the fish population on the continental shelf on their side, and they are frequently entering into the Sri Lankan waters. And these people have the modern equipment and trawlers. So this entire fish is being caught by the Indian fisherman and it is depriving the Sri Lankan fisherman. That is the complaint of Sri Lanka. And second thing is these are using something called as crust fishing or crust trawlers, which are going to damage the continental shelf, which is the breeding ground for the fishes. So it means their long-term livelihood is going to be damaged. That is the complaint of the Sri Lankan fishermen. Now, what the Indian fishermen are asking is, so at least 3 years of the intermediate phase or transformative phase has to be kept up. So in this context, what Indian government can do? So decreasing the Indian fishermen and providing them in the alternative employment is one necessary. And the second thing is, China wants to develop the capabilities of the Sri Lankan fishermen. So India also have a separate department for the fisheries which can leverage the scientific technology to Sri Lanka where it can develop its goodwill in Sri Lanka. That is what has been suggested in IDSA website. Now, coming to avoid interference, Nepal to India. Nepal has brought in its own constitution in 2015, where it has been criticized as discriminatory to Madhesis. Now, after this, India has indirectly interfered, asking the Nepal to provide for equality of treatment for all the citizens of the country. And Madhesis also have agitated and roadblocked and Nepal has interpreted as a blockade by India, and then there was bad blood developed between these two countries. Then the Prachanda became the president, prime minister, and then the situation is about to improve, and he is reviewing the change in the constitution now. But however, the Nepal has reiterated from time to time it has to be purely based on its own initiative, not through the interference of the other countries. Now, Israel president is about to visit India. If you understand, India has developed full diplomatic relations with Israel 25 years back. India was always in a situation where So the relations with Israel may damage its relationship with other Muslim countries in East Asia, Middle East. That's what is the problem. So now, as the governments change, to that extent, the relations with Israel are moving up and down. Now, Israel also has become the largest defense partner of India once. So, the second largest for that matter. So, in this context, what it is being expected is so the Prime Minister Modi is soon is about to make a visit to Israel. Now, geospatial data. Here we need to remember a bill which has become very much controversial. That is the Geospatial Information Regulation Bill. According to this, 100 crores of penalty can be imposed on an individual who has wrongly depicted Indian maps and can also be imprisoned. So, added to that, National Geospatial Policy 2016 of Department of Science and Technology is in contravention to this particular bill and it got shelved. Now, government is developing national data registry. As per this, any person or organization that possesses a metadata, they can submit it to the government, and this will be verified by the governmental agencies, the Department of Statistics, and then it will be finally published for. So, the national data registry is going to improve the quality and reliability of the Indian data sources, especially concerned with the geospatial data. So, these are the articles for today. Thank you very much. All the best.